Welcome to week 23 of the This Week in Film podcast, the show where we get together, discuss the movies we've seen over the past 7 days. I'm Nick Panunto, joined as always by Ray Radaminki and Charlie Chester.
Hello.
What's going on?
We got our sunglasses on.
That's right.
It's daytime. That's all I got. Who is going first? Because I already forgot.
Well, it wasn't discussed, actually.
I'll go first.
Okay.
You want to go first?
No, I don't know.
You go first.
Okay,
Go first.
yes.
Let me get warmed up.
All right, yeah. I'll get the ball rolling. Sure.
Reduced to a T.
So, the movie I picked, there's a reason behind it this week. Well, there's two reasons, actually. My first job I ever had in film industry was working for Troma Films. I don't know if you guys have heard of Troma Films.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Their biggest hit, I guess, to date was a Toxic Avenger movie.
Did they do Rotten Tomato or
Attack
Killer
of the Killer
Tomatoes?
Tomato? I don't know. That wasn't them.
Hmm.
It feels like them, but no, that wasn't them. But so like I was fresh out of my master's, and I got a job with them, and I could have made more money working at McDonald's. Like, no joke. Like, I think they paid like $6 an hour, but you were in the film industry, so
right,
you know. So it was in this like really shitty building in Harlem that they owned, and that was the biggest asset that they owned, was this building, right? So you go in. I was the head of marketing for this place. Yeah.
You were the head of
I was the head of marketing.
Troma Films.
Yeah. My job was they would buy, like, companies would be going under, and they would end up buying their entire collection of movies and then rebrand them as Troma movies, right? So,
really?
So my job was to watch these movies, and then write the new synopsis, the Troma-style synopsis on the back for the DVDs. And
Pretty cool job.
yeah, I was all stoked about it, right?
Are there a bunch of DVDs out there with your writing
There's a
on
couple
the
of
back?
them probably still out there. So
Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter?
I remembered that what they would do, they would get like another person in the same position as me, like in another department, to Photoshop the new Troma covers for these movies. So, for instance, like the one in particular that I like ended up leaving there over was this movie about fighter jets, and it was like an Iron Eagle ripoff sort of movie, right? But there was.
How do you make a lower budget Iron Eagle movie?
Oh, it was it was basically stock footage of just like fighter jets. So there's no female characters in the movie at all, but the cover that they created was women in bikinis, and in the background there's fighter jets, and it was called like Tomcat Fury or something like that, right? So I wrote the synopsis based on what the movie was about, and I got called down to the head guy's office, Lloyd Kaufman.
No way.
Yeah, and he was infamous for firing people all the time. Like, they would have a turnover rate of like 2 days for their employees.
What?
Yeah, like they would just constantly let people go. So I was there maybe 5 days now. I go downstairs expecting to get fired, and he's got this old school, like, it looks like a detective's desk with like just papers and DVDs all over it, and like it's just like it's just chaos, his desk. So I sit down, and he immediately starts like yelling at me at the top of his lungs, like screaming, and he throws the DVD at me, and he's like, let me ask you, what is this movie about? And I'm like, well, you know, I read my description, and he's like, not once do you mention melon heavy women on the back of that cover. And I'm like, Mr. Kaufman, there's no women in the movie. He's like, how the hell am I going to sell this thing if you don't talk about melon heavy women? And I'm like, all right, man, well, you know, I'm not writing that. so like, yeah, that was my last day at Troma. So anyway, one of my best friends who always listens.
Ridiculous story.
One of my best friends who always listens to our podcast, Chibi Foz, John Frank, begged me to review one of the Troma films now that I've had some distance from that place. And his favorite of all of them was Sergeant Kabukiman N.Y.P.D. so this one's for you, Chibi. So I watched this movie. I was kind of excited to watch a Troma movie again because it's been so long, and like that was a part of my childhood. Like Toxic Avenger was like fun for me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the basic premise of this movie is that there is almost like this power that's passed on from warrior to warrior of the Kabukiman. And the Kabukiman is essentially like a superhero in the Japanese culture based on in this movie. And when you turn on the kabuki power, you turn into like you get white makeup, your hair goes up into this like samurai bun sort of thing, and then like you're wearing the garb and everything, and then you just kick ass. Like that's it.
Makes sense.
So in this movie, the Kabuki man is killed in the very beginning of the movie, the guy who has this power, and it needs to get passed on to someone. So it just passes on for no good reason, mind you, to this like bumbling detective, this white American bumbling detective. And this is basically becomes one of the most racist movies I've ever seen in my life at this point, because it's obvious that they did no research on the Japanese culture whatsoever and just took every cliche of what Americans think in 1990, what Americans think Japanese culture is. So it's all about sushi jokes and chopstick jokes, and like it's absolutely absurd.
Who doesn't love chopstick jokes?
I love a good chopstick joke. Like walrus teeth.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. There's a whole lot of stuff.
I'm sure there's something else.
And I remember. You remember America's Funniest Videos?
Yeah.
You remember like the little videos that they would do, like they produced themselves, of like the jackalope, or like like where you're following a projectile through the air, and
a Sam Raimi sort of
thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like they did it like in a cheesy way.
Yeah.
They did this all over the place. You followed chopsticks flying through the air. You followed Chinese umbrellas, which it wasn't even Japanese. They were crossing their
those
cultures.
Parasols.
Yeah, they were crossing cultures big time. So
up until you started talking about the white person in Japanese garb, it sounded like the plot to Green Lantern.
yeah. I think they might have.
Yeah, powers are passed on.
Yeah, like the guy dies, someone needs to become the Green Lantern or Kabuki Man.
Yeah, essentially, it's that basic archetype, like story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the story's going on, and if you know anything about Troma Films, there is gore.
Yeah.
And it is like horrific gore. At one point, someone gets rolled up, a prostitute gets rolled up into a big seaweed wrap, and Kabuki Man chops her up into sushi.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Doesn't make any sense.
Nope, not at all. And it's all slapstick comedy, but when slapstick comedy has gone wrong, like
Is
it's
she
just
being
not
punished
funny.
because she's a prostitute?
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, it's just Kabuki Man's job just to punish all the evildoers of the city. So he goes around just murdering people, left and right.
Wow.
And of course, there's the bad guy is just a normal white dude with a woman's wig on. And they make it sound like he's like this super villain, and they take him out with a gunshot to the head at one point, and that's it. Like this big anticlimactic. It was so anticlimactic, like how he ended up defeating him. So I'm trying to remember anything. Well, yeah, there's a lot of boobs. There's a lot of nudity in it.
Yeah, now we're interested.
There's a lot of that.
A lot of melon heavy women.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You had my curiosity, and now you have my attention.
Troma films are ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, like every once in a while you'll get one that is sit throughable. For the most part, a lot of they just feel like student films, like experimental student films, and they probably bought them for $10 and they're just throwing them at a wall, hoping that something.
Yeah, like what's like an estimated budget of like one of these movies?
They were notorious at the time when I was there for not getting any permits at all. So they would just film as quickly as possible and then move on and then move on and then move on.
Slashes the budget.
So that alone, I think they might have owned like 1 or 2 film cameras. So like, yeah, and Matt, you're paying everyone essentially $6 an hour.
Yeah.
In your office, and you're probably not paying any of the crew.
6 months.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I would say like, maybe like for their big blockbuster movies, maybe a couple $100,000 is what they paid, And the actors are all like fans. They cast the fans.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which is
that.
cool. Like I dig that. I dig that. If like, it's like they're making these movies more for like the horror fans and like they're self-generating themselves.
Yeah, like it's a genre, like Troma is its own genre and feeds on itself.
Absolutely. There is some redeeming things about this, but I just can't enjoy the films. I'm not one of those fans in that way, but
neither am I. Like there's a couple of them that I like here and there, but not because I think one of them is Cannibal the Musical, but that's just Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
They
I
bought
like those
movie.
guys.
It was already made. And
that was
Troma bought it. Yeah.
Student film. And then another, I think they were involved in Orgasmo, which is another Trey Parker. I like anything Trey Parker does.
Right.
And because Lloyd Kaufman is in that and stuff, so I'm sure they had a hand. But Lloyd Kaufman, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he just seems like well, you would know, Charlie. He seems like he would be a nice guy, but he just seems like a schlocky Mel Brooks. Yeah, it was... Like if you took everything that you like about Mel Brooks and cast it to the lowest common
that whole like it's like sleaze slapstick horror, and he brings the sleaze in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like it's
that's a good word. Sleazy. He's like a sleazy Mel Brooks.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just it was definitely tough to get through.
I've seen him in a lot of things. Like he does a ton of interviews and a lot of appearances, and he's always on. Like his whatever his persona is he's always on, and that like when you see him doing anything, you can tell that. Like you can tell the kind of movies that he makes.
Right. He's always like 3 seconds like after a bump of coke is what he sounds like whenever he's doing an interview.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So apparently before I worked there, James Gunn, director, worked there.
Okay.
Yeah, he did the
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
He worked there, I guess. I think, from what I understand, James Gunn's family was an industry family, and like he just loved that style. So he worked for them for a while. I guess Lloyd took to him, let him write Romeo and Juliet, and then James Gunn moved out to Hollywood, got back with I guess
he
his
was
circle.
Doing the porn minus the porn.
Yeah,
like those little shorts where like porn stars would show up and do like traditional porn intros, and then it would like. How you want to pay for this car?
Yeah.
I guess with a credit card, that's fine.
Yeah,
they're like 2 minutes long, but they're pretty great.
I mean, if you look at most of James Gunn's movies or whatnot, there's a little bit of Troma in it.
Oh, yeah,
it's definitely mainstream, but like you look at Dawn of the Dead, that zombie baby thing, that's totally a Troma moment.
Was that James Gunn?
Yeah, James Gunn wrote that.
I thought that was Zack
It is. That's Zack Snyder.
Yeah, James Gunn wrote it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. James Gunn, that was his big break.
That would explain why most of it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, James Gunn wrote that, and then he went on to do the Scooby-Doo movies.
I like some of his stuff. 300 is great.
I like Watchmen, too.
I love The Watchmen. All right. Well, he's batting about 350, which is pretty good.
So that my review for Sergeant Kabukiman N.Y.P.D. is mainly... I was angry at my friend for making me watch this as I went through it. It was, and guess how long the movie is?
90?
It's 2 hours.
What?
Why was that movie 2 hours long? I
thought you were going to come back with 73.
Nope. It was a
2 hours.
Solid 2 hours.
Ugh.
I think you need to do yourself a favor and watch a good movie. Because you've been really killing yourself.
Yeah,
lately.
I'm getting beat up.
Yeah,
I'm beating myself up.
I haven't done a video edition in a long time.
No, it's just the balls
Not that
are
we
rolling.
stopped doing them. I just don't have any time lately.
Oh, man. Yeah, I deserve a good movie. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
All right,
Treat
so watch
yourself.
another Kabukiman next week.
Good
and
Lord.
See where they went with the series. Ray, What have you got this week?
This week I watched Bronson, the 2008 biopic by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I honestly looked online and I found 3 different ways of pronouncing it. So that's what I'm going with.
I think he's going by NWR now.
Yeah, well, that's way easier to do.
Yeah.
He's the guy who directed Drive, Valhalla Rising. He's got a really particular style, and I don't really think it lends itself to a biopic very well. If you don't know, the movie stars Tom Hardy. He plays a real guy named Michael Gordon Peterson, who has been known as the most violent prisoner in Britain. He was kind of a normal dude, had a wife, kids, but as he says in the biopic, Tom Hardy narrates it too as the guy.
Okay.
He always had a particular, love for fighting. He's always gotten in fights his entire life. So he ends up getting imprisoned for armed robbery. He robs a post office, and he goes to jail for.
Why would you rob a post office?
I don't know. I totally forget even why he did. That's like not even part of the. That's like neither here nor there type of thing.
Mailmen are our most treasured resource.
Right, and I think he shows like he ends up robbing it, and he comes back with like, $10, and that's what he gets arrested for. So he goes to jail and realizes that he loves prison. He just loves everything about it. Like, he loves fighting with the prison guards. He loves like messing with the inmates. He describes it as almost as like a hotel experience, because what happens is he goes to these prisons and he just causes such a ruckus that he gets kicked out and moved to a different prison. And he keeps saying, like, it's like a hotel stay. I go to a prison for a year, then I go to another prison for a year, then I go to a different prison for a year. And everything, every prison's got its own little quirks, its own little differences. So Tom Hardy's pretty much the whole show here. I mean, he plays the main character. He does all the narration. There's other characters in the movie, but he doesn't really have much interactions with them. It's mostly just him. Right. It's mostly just him fighting with the inmates. The story's told in a way of he is at a play almost, or he's on stage in front of a huge group of people as he's talking about like his life and like narrating it. So it keeps flashing back to him on the stage, explaining everything that happened to him, and then it goes back to like the story and what his life was like.
And that's like an imaginary thing.
Right.
Like,
that's not like a real thing. That's just like him in
it's,
his head.
it's like a venue for his soliloquy.
Right.
Is that the name of your new album?
Yeah, my pretentious album.
So this is a true story. This guy has been in prison. He's still alive. He has been in prison right now for 34 years. Well, 2008, 34 years. Mm-hmm. And he was in solitary confinement for 30 of them.
That's ridiculous.
Just because every time he goes to prison, he just like fights everybody.
Right.
And the one thing that I didn't get about the movie either was every time he gets in a fight with these like prison guards, it lasts for like 10 seconds. And then there's so many of them, he just gets like, pinned down, or they pick him up and like, I mean, he's a big guy, but they like pick him up and pull him to somewhere and like throw him in a cage somewhere. Like the fights never last long. Like it's like he gets so up for these fights and then it's like 10 seconds and it's over. Like he's like rubbing like baby oil all over himself, so he's like slippery and they can't like grab him. This guy's just like an absolute nut. And apparently, from what I read, like this is how he is in real life. He's just like a crazy person.
Okay.
Tom Hardy actually met with the guy in prison a couple times before he did the movie. And the first time Tom Hardy meets him, I guess Tom Hardy wasn't as big as this guy was. He wasn't like as buff. And he was, Michael Gordon Peterson is like, you're not really as big as I am. Like, I don't like how you act. Like, I don't think you're good enough for the role. And Tom Hardy like promised him, he's like, listen, I'll be back here in 6 months and I'm going to be jacked.
Right.
He's like, you just got to trust me. So Tom Hardy goes back 6 months later and is just huge. And
like this Bane size.
Right,
Tom
exactly.
Hardy.
And this guy's so impressed with like his transformation that he shaves off his mustache and gives it to him as like a prop so they can form his mustache as like a mustache prop so Tom Hardy can wear it for the filming of the movie.
That's insane. That's an insane person.
Exactly. So the movie's called Bronson because
I want you to wear my hair.
he does get out of prison for like a brief period. I think it was like a year and a half, and he starts street fighting, like bare knuckle boxing.
Well, how old is he at that point?
I think he's like in his like late 30s, early 40s.
Oh.
He's like 63 now.
Okay.
And he starts bare knuckle boxing, and the promoter is like, listen, like you can't go by your regular name. We need like a cool name for you. So you need to pick like a Hollywood actor, like somebody that everybody's going to recognize. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go by Charles Bronson. Even though he's never seen a single movie from Charles Bronson.
He's never seen Death
He just
Wish.
recognizes that name as like
Sounds like
popular,
cool,
or cool name.
Cool name. Yeah.
So for the rest of his life, he's known as Charles Bronson.
Okay.
Have you got? You didn't see this, right, Nick?
I
You've
have
never
not seen it.
Charlie, you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I saw it a while ago.
I thought the music in the film was great, which is a thing that Nicholas Winding Refn does very well. It's all like electronic pop music, and I thought it was different, but I liked how they used it in the film. It was very like, whenever they used it, it like felt right.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I would say Tom Hardy, great performance. Music was great. The movie just wasn't. It was just all over the place. In terms of a biopic, I just didn't think it really did well. But Tom Hardy kind of carries it. Literally carries it. Stole the show.
Yeah, the director got in his own way in a lot of ways. I thought I remember watching it and like, yeah, there was points where I was like, all right, just let Tom Hardy do his thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, stop trying to be so stylistic at
Right.
certain points. It's like it's not working. But yeah, he does have a really good ear and eye for tone, you know, with music and whatnot.
Oh yeah, the movie's really cool looking, and like there's one scene where like he's acting out like on the stage, he's acting out like a scene from like his life, and he's acting like he's talking to a woman, and one side of his face is painted like a woman, and the other side of his face is just plain, and he keeps like turning around and like speaking in the woman voice and speaking in the male voice, acting like he's like having a conversation with somebody. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
But that like doesn't move the story along at all. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, that's
Right.
pretty cool. But then like, why did he do that? There was no point of that.
So the movie's more of a performance piece than a storytelling.
Right, exactly. And I think that would work if it wasn't they weren't trying to tell a story of like some guy's life.
Right.
But apparently Charles Bronson, or Michael Gordon Peterson, whatever you want to call him, loved it. Like he loved how he was portrayed. He loved how Tom Hardy looked. I mean, if you look at pictures of him, Tom Hardy looks exactly like him with the bald head and the mustache.
Okay.
But yeah, apparently this guy like loved it. And even his mother, I think, saw it and loved it too. So like they liked it, I guess. But I thought the story was kind of weak.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't really humanize him. Like, I didn't
No.
understand the motivations, really. It's just, okay, I'm going to be crazy and just do crazy things, as opposed to, like, if you're going to make a movie about someone's life, I mean, even if that's accurate, if, like,
Right.
you know, that's what they
Yeah,
witnessed.
maybe that's how that guy really was. Like
you,
he was
you,
just
you need,
One day
you
he's
need
just
to,
like, I'm gonna fight people.
Right.
now.
but you need to, like, cinema up, in a way. You know what I mean? And write something where the audience wants to follow the character for whatever reason. It could be a villain, but be a well-written villain with motivations, and like, they didn't have that, you know.
Right, and there was like no other characters either. Like everybody else was kind of just like secondary. Like it was him, and whenever they introduced somebody, like they didn't have a name. It was just like a prison guard or the warden of the prison, or like I think he meets up with his uncle. I think it's Uncle Jack at one point, and that guy has like a 5-minute scene, and then you know what I mean. Like there's nobody else. It's just Tom Hardy the whole time. So I mean, he was great, but it was just like it needed more.
Right.
So good performance, bad movie.
All right. All right. Well, I'll close things out this week. General spoiler alert, because the movie I'm going to talk about is 10 Cloverfield Lane, which, I don't remember who directed it.
Wait,
Is it
Trachtenberg?
Yeah, Dan Trachtenberg
Yeah.
directed it. And all three of us have now seen it.
Mhm.
Yes.
I was the last. And so we're going to dive into the movie a little bit. So if you haven't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane, maybe fast forward till we get to the answers to Ray's Rain Dome request and his question for this week. But anyway, yeah, I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Nice.
Stars
Mary
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and the third guy is John Gallagher Jr.
Who, before you go on, I spent 40 minutes of that movie
Uh-huh.
trying to figure. Like I knew who that guy was.
Who is he? Because I don't know.
He's from like The Newsroom. Do you ever see the show The Newsroom?
I
on
haven't
HBO?
seen it yet. No.
So he's from that, and the whole beginning of the movie, I'm like, I know this guy. I know where he's. I couldn't figure it out. And like midway through the movie, I'm like, oh, he's from The Newsroom because he's got the beard and stuff. You can't really.
Oh, okay. I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I thought all three of them were great. The movie's plot is starts off Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character is clearly leaving her husband or fiance, and I thought that she lived in New York because I don't recognize major cities. Anyway, she leaves her fiance and is driving away.
Mm-hmm.
While she's driving, she's in a real bad car accident, and she wakes up in this bunker because John Goodman has found her and brings her back, but she wakes up and she's leg cuffed to the wall so that she can't get away. And really from this point on, the movie keeps going twists and turns. The movie does a fantastic job of keeping you off balance.
Right.
So now is when I'm going to go heavy spoilers. So if you haven't turned it off yet or fast forwarded, I suggest you fast forward. Stay tuned to the show. And so I honestly had no idea where the movie was going at all times.
Yeah, neither did I.
So the first sequence of when she's in the bunker, she meets John Goodman, who is a straight up weirdo, who after the first reveal of the upstairs, it's difficult to talk about this without like talking in chronological order.
Right.
But like after the first reveal where you find out, oh, something terrible has happened. And she's not just being held captive.
Right. She doesn't trust. He's telling her that like she can't go outside. Something bad has happened, and she doesn't trust him.
And as a viewer, you're on her side. You're like, well, let me out. You're holding me against my will. Let me out. And he is a straight up weirdo. And after the first reveal where you find out, oh, something terrible's happened, you're like, oh, he just has communication problems. He's just a really bad communicator and a lunatic. Like the guy's crazy, but his heart is good. Then the movie moves on, and you find out that the guy may have murdered his daughter and a few other people, and then you're like, and then she has to escape, and when she does, then she's out on the surface, and you're like, all right, she's out. There's no poison gas. People aren't
she's
dying.
Fine.
Maybe like so. What the hell is going on? And then aliens.
Yeah, when she got out and. As soon as she got out, I was like, all right, there's two ways this is going to go. This is either going to be aliens or it's going to be like, this was all a hoax, like blah, blah, blah. And they went the alien route.
Right.
Which
was a neat sequence.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was almost like two different movies because like the majority of the movie is just like underground, like suspense. And then it turns into this like sci-fi action movie for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which was kind of weird.
From what I understand, like he wrote the movie, and then when they brought it to Abrams people and were doing it, they did some sort of a rewrite. I wonder if that was what they rewrote because at that point they make it almost like in the same universe as Cloverfield, right? I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
I don't know. I feel like the Cloverfield thing is now the label for like an anthology of here's a weird story.
Right.
Like
I thought
Twilight
it had
Zone sort of thing.
I thought it had nothing to do.
Yeah,
with
I didn't
Cloverfield.
think it had anything.
No.
to do either,
I mean, it might.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
But the beginning of the movie where John Goodman like opens the door and he's like, "Here's some food."
Right.
I would have eaten this, but you can have some because he's large. It's a hilarious joke, and but he's so odd, like the way that he deals with her. Like, why would you chain someone up?
Right.
And then it's like, because I don't trust you, and all that stuff. But he trusts the other guy that he's known.
If you want somebody to freak out, chain them up.
Right. And it's kind of like we're sitting here trying to talk about it. It's difficult to talk about.
It really is.
A lot happens in, I think the movie's like an hour and a half, but a lot happens in 90 minutes. And
I thought they did a great balance of like,
yeah,
there was probably like 10 points in the script of the back and forth. Is John Goodman crazy? Is John Goodman sane? Like back and forth.
Right.
He keeps, and they did a really good job, moment to moment, almost like you're unsure.
And they really set up they really set him up to be just a paranoid freak because he is. Like, he created this luxurious bunker underneath his farm, and then he just, when he's trying to talk to them about what happened above, or the explosions started happening, you're thinking to yourself, well, you're on a farm or something. Somehow I knew they were on a farm.
Yeah.
Or underneath a farm. And I was thinking, well, maybe it was like one of those fertilizer plant explosions, and the guy freaked out and thought it was the end of the world because he's some goofball doomsday prepper. And then the other guy, who isn't very smart either, but is a nice guy, just goes along with him because he's
right. He's known him his whole life, right?
Yeah.
Because they grew up in the same neighborhood
something
together.
like that. Like he worked there,
right?
You know?
So he trusts him.
Yeah, and so like John Goodman starts tossing out. He's like, maybe it was the Russians, maybe it was an accident, or aliens. Those guys are doing crazy things, and you're like, oh, this guy is crazy, you know?
Exactly.
Right.
And it was like the little subtle things like that, like the alien remark where you go, it's not aliens,
Right. That's
you know?
so obvious.
It's so obvious, and then at the end, aliens.
I mean, at the end, he was right. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole time. I mean, he was a psycho and he went about it the wrong way, but
Yeah.
they should have stayed down there.
I think after she goes up and tries to escape the first time, and then that woman is there smashing her head against the wall trying to get in.
At that point, you're like, hold on a second.
Yeah, you are in the seat with Mary Elizabeth Winstead the entire movie. Like, you are with her. Everything she goes through, you're going through as a viewer. So when she goes, right before she escapes, she smashes the bottle on John Goodman's head, and then the next scene after you see the woman smashing her head on the window, you're back in the dining room and he's explaining like what has happened. Like, he finally takes some time to talk to her.
Right.
And she goes, I have severely misjudged you. And as a viewer, you're like, I have misjudged him too. He's just, like I said, he's just a poor communicator.
Right.
And she like stitches him up and they all start to get along. And then he starts acting weird again. And
the scene where the first time when she steals the keys and they're all sitting at the dinner table was awesome. Like, because you knew what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
And like, you know that like he's kind of looking at her and the other guy's kind of looking at her, but like the way they did that was awesome. It was like 10 minutes you were like on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. I said to my wife while we were sitting there, I was like all tense, like my shoulders were like up against,
because you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it was really well done. The ending was hokey, but it was still cool.
Yeah.
And then, like she's driving away, and then they set up the thing before where she's like, we need people to fight or we need people to run away.
Right.
And she makes a decision, but it's a pretty good movie. If you haven't seen it, I have now ruined it for you. If you have seen it, you agree that everything I've said happens.
Well, you might have ruined it, but I feel like you could still watch it.
Yeah,
and
you could still
enjoy it.
watch it. I don't know if I could watch it again.
You might not like it as much.
Probably not. I think that the twists and turns of the movie are they're really satisfying twists, and not just one big twist in the movie, but I mean like twist after twist.
Yeah,
and it's the stuff that you put yourself through. Not that the movie changes direction. Like you change direction constantly.
I felt very much like it was Hitchcockian in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The style of it, like the storytelling itself, it starts off almost like Psycho, and then it becomes Rear Window for a little bit, and then I don't know, it just felt like that suspense, that build, and then almost like Rope too, the movie Hitchcock's Rope, where like it's a murder mystery and they're trying to figure it out, and like there's danger in the room, and like the audience knows it, but it's trying to figure out where it's coming from. I thought it was great. I really liked it.
I really enjoyed it. I love the part where she gets out, and I forget what sets it up, but like the alien ship shows up, and she just is like, "Come on," just completely and like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then she's got to deal with it, and it was really well done. All right, so that was week 23 of This Week in Film. If you have fast forward to this point, we're now going to answer the many answers that we got from Ray's random requests from a couple weeks ago. We were away last week, but you got to listen to our X-Men review. But if you don't remember, Ray's question was, what is your favorite Christmas movie? And on Facebook, we got a bunch of responses. Christy says, Christmas Vacation is her #1 movie, followed by Elf. She also loves our show.
Oh, thanks, Christy.
And Christy, we love you.
Oh.
Sam says Jingle All the Way. This is Sam A. We know her. She says Jingle All the Way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ridiculous. No one would ever say Jingle All the Way is their favorite
I feel like Keith would
Christmas
say that.
movie. Yeah,
Keith might say
that's a
that.
good point. Sandy Vagina, or as I like to call him, Scott, but he says Die Hard, and he currently lives in Germany. And if you post from Germany and you write a word that looks German, like Die Hard, like die in German is it lets you translate it, and it turns into the hardware.
Oh,
It's fun.
yeah.
But he said, so I said that to him, and he told me in Germany, the movie Die Hard is called Die Slowly,
Oh.
which is a fun fact. Jill says, A Charlie Brown Christmas. And then I said, that isn't a movie, so you have now said Lethal Weapon, which is a Christmas movie, Ray. Takes place during Christmas.
No, I
Christmas
said Die Hard wasn't a Christmas movie. I didn't even know. Was Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie too?
Yeah.
They both are not Christmas movies.
Die Hard is
Just because a movie takes place during Christmas doesn't make it a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is totally a Christmas movie.
That would make... Okay, that means you could call Crimson Tide a Thanksgiving movie because it takes place on Thanksgiving.
There's not a lot of Thanksgiving movies.
Yeah, we need more of them.
Yeah.
Well, it has nothing to do with
Well,
Thanksgiving.
it's good now that I have something to watch on Thanksgiving.
yeah. The Thanksgiving
Planes,
classic.
trains, and automobiles.
Right. But Die Hard, like even the music throughout the movie is Christmas music throughout. It's all sleigh bells and
Yeah, whatever.
giant Christmas
Agree to
tree
disagree.
explodes.
I mean, Home Alone's a Christmas movie, Ray.
Yeah, Home Alone definitely is.
Just because it doesn't have a family element doesn't make it not a Christmas movie.
No, Home Alone, there's like Christmas trees and like...
There's
takes
Christmas
place-
trees in Die Hard.
Yeah, but they're not like... Forget it.
Christmas happens in Los Angeles, Ray. Just because there's no
Does
snow. Brian says Ernest Saves Christmas.
That's
Awesome.
That is a great movie.
Brian would say that.
He would. I like the part in Ernest Saves Christmas when the reindeer are on the ceiling. And that guy makes the weird eyeball thing. Anyway. Barbara says A Christmas Story. Classic movie. See it every year. Matt says the animated movie The Christmas Tree. Now, if you haven't seen this,
No.
I would recommend seeing it, and also at the same time, don't watch it because it is 40 or 50 minutes of insanity. You could probably find it on YouTube, but The Christmas Tree, it is ridiculous.
Okay.
You should just try to find a clip of it and then just, what am I watching? Chris, who we also know, says The Santa Claus, and he also refers to it as Home Improvement, the movie, because Chris has problems putting actors in different things.
Wait, did you say Judy's pick yet?
Oh, no. Judy also says Die Hard.
Yeah, she'll shake you if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how to use the internet to post things. Tom says that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, A Very Sunny Christmas, which I think counts because it was a DVD special.
I'll give it to him.
More so than Charlie Brown Christmas.
Sure, you can get that on DVD.
Yeah, but that's only 30 minutes. That's not.
Whatever.
Tom also says Lethal Weapon. I think Lethal Weapon 3 takes place at Christmas also. So that was all the responses we had for last week.
No one said reindeer games.
No one did say reindeer games.
I'm saying it.
Big reindeer games fan.
Yeah.
I've never seen reindeer games.
No?
No. I've heard nothing but
Great
Awful.
things about
awful.
it.
If that's a Christmas movie, then Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
It has reindeer in the title.
Yeah.
This movie has hard in the title. So Ray, what is this week's Ray's Raindome Request?
This week, I'm going to go with, since I watched Bronson, which was a biopic that I didn't think was a very good biopic.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite biopic movie?
Oh, very good.
There's a lot of them out there.
There are tons of them, yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Let's move on to the plug segment of the show.
Oh.
Charlie, what could you possibly want to plug?
Oh, what haven't I talked about every week? Boy Zero, my graphic novel, is available on Amazon.com. Volume 1 and Volume 2, you can search Boy Zero or Charles Chester. It'll pop up. It's also available digitally through Comixology, Drive Through Comics, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the major distributors. And shout outs to Knuckleheads Podcast.
Mhm.
Shout outs to Superhero Speak Podcast. Shout out to Geek Yogurt Podcast. And Plus
I like
Two
that name.
Comedy podcasts. All friends of the show and
Yep.
pretty entertaining shows themselves.
And you were featured on all those shows.
On all of
recently.
them,
You
yeah.
can probably look back at their catalogs and find the Charlie episode. I would like to call out the podcast radio network that we are featured on every Wednesday night at 10:30. You can download the Crikey app for your phone and dial it to 102.7. It's KRY. I think it's Crikey. It has
like Australian, like crikey,
Crikey, but it's like KRY. Otherwise, it's Cree or
cray cray.
Cray. Oh, maybe it's
yeah.
Cray.
Yeah, I think it's
I like
probably
Crikey.
cray.
Or you can just go to podcastradio.net and find it there. I also want to give a shout out to the guys who give us the great lead-in to our show on the Podcast Radio Network. You can find them on Twitter or the name of their show, which is at Let's Talk Flicks. It's a really fun show, and you should totally check it out. Ray, can you tell everyone where they can find us?
You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, and, as always, thisweekinfilmpodcast.com.
All right. Well, I think that'll about do it for this week, fellas.
Yeah.
So if that is the end of the reel,
Good week, guys.
we will see you next week in film.
Great ending.